Welcome back, everyone, to a brand new TV show spoiler review here at Max Talks Movies. My name is Max Sinnenberg, and today we're back. It is season three of one of the biggest TV shows of all time, one of the biggest shows ever on HBO. Euphoria, season three, 4 years later, has finally premiered. I'm just going to break down the full episode in spoiler fashion. So, my name is Max Sinnenberg. Welcome back to Max Talks Movies. Again, before I get started with the spoiler review of Euphoria Season 3, Episode 1, again, this is a full spoiler review. So if you're here just wanting curious thoughts on Season 3, I did full breakdowns of Season 2 here on the channel. I want to talk full spoilers. There's a lot of things I want to say because this is one of the most important shows of my life, in my opinion. I think it's one of the best shows I've ever seen. So I have a lot of thoughts on this new season, the direction, all of that stuff. So this is a full spoiler review. So if you've not seen episode 1 of season 3, watch it, come back here, let's talk Euphoria. So as I said, this is one of my favorite shows of all time, definitely my top three. And it was a long break in between seasons 2 and 3. Because again, there wasn't supposed to be a long break between seasons 1 and 2, but COVID happened and it delayed some events and how we got to season 2. And obviously, it's really amazing when you reflect on the show now that all of these actors, for the most part, were really unknowns when Euphoria came out in 2019. Zendaya was famous, but not as famous as she is now. And then you have, superstar actors these days who are now in everything. If you're talking about Jacob Elordi and Sydney Sweeney and Coleman Domingo in particular, who now you see in a billion projects every single year. Those people were really discovered through Euphoria. So it's funny when you see all these mega superstars now in the world of Hollywood come back to a show that made them famous, which is crazy because the show came out in 2019, 7 years ago, and here we are back in season 3. So I've heard all of the stuff behind the scenes. I've known that the critic reviews were not strong for the series, even though the critics only saw 3 episodes of an 8 episode show. And I still don't get why critics are allowed to give score ratings for TV shows when they haven't seen the entire thing, which I don't, as you know, on my channel, I don't give scores and letter ratings and all those things until for a show until I see the entire season. Because some shows start out hot and don't end very good. Some shows start out terrible and end really great. So I don't really love to judge a show based on 1 episode, 4 episodes. This is an 8 episode series, but I'll say this. I'm definitely in the mixed feeling part of this episode here. I'm definitely more positive than I am negative with the episode, but it definitely has its flaws here. And obviously, do I think this episode felt like prime season 1, season 2, Euphoria? No. But again, it's the first episode. It's setting the table for what we're going to get in the rest of the series. And I am excited to see where the show goes over the next 7 weeks here covering it. But there were definitely some highs. I definitely think there were some lows. Before we get to like the stories, the performances, and all of those with this episode, this is probably gonna be a longer spoiler review than the rest of my coverage of Euphoria, just because it's the first episode. But I think the biggest problem for the show, honestly, is the fact that Labyrinth is not back to compose the score and make new music for the show. People have said it for now 7 straight years. He really was the heart and soul of the show. His music was a major element that made the show stand out. Obviously, it's subject matter, its performances, the way the show is shot is all very unique. But a huge element of that, another part of what made Euphoria special in the first 2 seasons, was Labyrinth's music. And obviously, there was a huge falling out around a month ago of Labyrinth. He was supposed to be doing the score with Hans Zimmer for this season, but he made some, remarks crapping on not just the show, but also the label. No one on the show has like spoke out on why Labyrinth was not back. Sam Levinson said he didn't know why he wasn't able to come back. Obviously, that's probably not true. He's the one running the show. But Hans Zimmer, again, he's one of the greatest composers of all time. But I don't, it's a drastic composer change. Because you're going from Labyrinth, who's a very unconventional composer. It's not like this guy composes movie scores on a consistent basis. He's a musician, he sings, he's an artist, but he also does scores. So he's a very unique composer for a show like this, and you're doing something like that to not trying to put Hans Zimmer in this group. But he's the very not comfortable, but he's the stereotypical proper composer. And I really felt the transition from Labyrinth to Hans Zimmer. And again, I love Hans Zimmer. The score was not for me in this episode. It just didn't feel like Euphoria at all when I was listening to the music and listening to it after as well. And I thought it was the biggest thing missing, I think, so far into this season. But let's get into this season. So we catch up 4 years later with the characters. Rue kind of takes us through the first 15, 20 minutes of this episode, where 4 years later, Rue is basically become a mole for Lori because we learn at the beginning of the season that obviously she owed Lori like some, couple, like 43, I think it was, $1,000 or something like that, where she owed Lori, but because she has not seen Lori in 4 years, Lori added all of those months up, and now she owes Lori $43 million. So now Laura, Rue's become a mole for them. She meets this family in Texas that is very religious, and they have no technology, and she feels that she's never seen anyone as happy as this family. They are not associated with anyone else. They do their own thing. There's no technology. There's no really semblance of the outside world to them. And it inspires throughout the episode to believe in God to put her in the right direction. There's definitely going to be a lot of religious overtones with the season. But she's smuggling drugs through her stomach. And I know a lot of people were taken aback by that. Again, this show, and I also did this little rant here before I move on with the actual story. This show now has some rabid critics and criticisms. And when I go on social media and when I see people talk about the show, you can really sniff out the people who actually watch the show and the people who don't watch the show and maybe click on the hashtag Euphoria on Twitter and see clips and say, oh my God, this is what the show is all about. Like I see a lot of people do that with the dog scene, let's just say between Cassie and Nate and say, oh my God, this is the entire show. And it's not. This show has always pushed the boundaries. I don't think it's ever been offensive or it's made it like disgusting. It's definitely in your face of what it's trying to accomplish. I also think it's trying to also put a mirror back to us as a society that people do act like this. People do have these stories to tell. If it's being an OnlyFans model or if it's being a drug addict. There's all these different elements to the show. And some people don't like that people actually act like this. I don't know if people are offended that this is what society actually is. I'm not saying the show is, especially this season, is a perfect mirror to what's going on in today's climate, but it's definitely a glimpse, I would say. And you can definitely tell by the people who are online. Many people just who don't watch the show just crap all over it when they watch one scene of Sydney Sweeney doing OnlyFans and they're like, "Oh my God, this is the entire show. It's so disgusting and embarrassing." And it's like a scene maybe in the show, like it's not the entire show. It's one of those complex shows I've ever watched, and it goes through a lot of different highs and lows and emotions. So definitely want to get that rant over with. There are fair criticisms, and I'll bring those up. And I think my biggest problem with the episode as a whole was I thought the Rue stuff, being the drug mole, the Western Hollywood like aesthetic, where it felt like it was like a throwback Western, show in a modern climate. It felt like I was watching two completely different shows. Like when Ruru was smuggling drugs and when she was in, Texas and Mexico, I felt like I was watching a completely different show than we went back to Cassie, Nate, Maddie, and Lexi in the episode. That felt like felt like Euphoria. The stuff with Rue where she's doing this car chase and she's smuggling drugs, it definitely felt like it was two different shows going on. The other thing that I'm very nervous about, don't worry, I'm going to talk about my positives, but the other thing I'm nervous about for the remainder of the series is obviously our characters are not in high school anymore, so they're not going to be under one roof at all times. Like, yes, there were obviously multiple things going on in Euphoria, but in the first two seasons, but it would be really awesome when conflicts are going on with different characters, they would have to face each other under one roof. That's a fair, if that is prom, There were a holiday party. There were so many instances where all of the main characters of Euphoria had to be under one roof. And now, of course, the show has to evolve because we're now seeing them as adults, and that can't always be the case. So I am nervous that the show won't connect as well when the characters aren't under the same roof. And if it might feel like a very scattershot season because we're following 4 to 5 different subplots where the characters aren't intervening whatsoever. So that's my biggest nervousness going into these final 7 episodes is obviously it seems like with Cassie's wedding in the season, we're going to get everyone under one roof. And that's the element of the show I'm most excited for. But how can the show sustain itself when all of these characters cannot be interacting with each other? But Rue meets up with Lexi in this season, who is in Hollywood trying to make it. She's an assistant to Sharon Stone's character in the show. And I loved the scene between Lexi and Rue. We find out that, obviously Angus Cloud passed away, so we can, of course, no longer have Fez, sadly, in the show. And of course, it's so sad that we don't have Angus Cloud and Eric Dane alive anymore. Just very sad. But the show did not kill him off. Fez is in prison after the events of season 2. And Lexi tells Rue about Jules, and Maddie delivers a really good line about what Jules is actually doing. Maddie is a Hollywood agent. And then you have Cassie and Nate. Nate's taking over his father's construction business, while Cassie, who has no money, is trying to be a social media influencer at the beginning of the episode, but then towards the very end of the episode, she wants to be an OnlyFans model to make money to do whatever she wants for her wedding. And I thought the Nate Cassie stuff was easily my favorite part of the episode. I thought Jacob Elordi and Sydney Sweeney in particular just really brought it in this episode. And obviously it goes to places, very dark places with Nate, the way Nate talks to people, of course. Is it believable? Nate is running this whole company now. I think it's questionable because again, Nate was someone who literally never worked throughout high school, so it's tough that he's now running a group of people and making all of these deals. But again, 4 years have passed. Who knows what's happened? But obviously, the dinner scene with all the candles lit was a pretty intense scene because Cassie wants this unbelievable wedding. $50,000 worth of florals for the wedding. And Nate's like, 2,000's cool. 5,000, maybe. But like $50,000 for plants that are just going to die a day or two later. Like, what are we talking about? And then Cassie, the part that makes the Nate and Cassie dynamic so interesting is Cassie can go crazy, if not crazier than Nate. And she is very confident in herself. She's not afraid of Nate in this relationship. And she was like laughing. She's like, oh, you really can't pay for this wedding? And Nate goes through all of the reasons. And Cassie says, you have your moments. We're so close to this moment. My moment is being up there for the wedding. And that's when she says she wants to do OnlyFans. Nate's against it. But then he's like, what kind of pictures are you going to show? And he was like, you can't show this and this in the same picture. I think Nate, wants to be in control of everything in his life. And one of that things is Cassie having to rely on him for money. I think he loves the fact that Cassie has no money and is this wife who, he's putting in all the hard yards. He's making all the money for the family and she relies on him. I think a big conflict in this season probably will be that Cassie will start to make an enormous amount of money on OnlyFans, more money than Nate's making, and how is that going to make Nate feel? It looks like in the trailers that Maddie is going to help out Cassie in the OnlyFans stuff. Cassie was stalking Maddie on social media in this episode. So I am fascinated if Cassie and Maddie are going to be on the same page, how Nate will interact with the fact that Maddie is trying to help Cassie out, bring that love triangle back into play here. It's going to be some fascinating stuff. We got the return of Faye as well, helping out Rue with the drug smuggling. And then towards the end of the episode, Rue meets Alamo, who I don't want to describe exactly what he does, let's just say, but Rue wants this job now. Rue also has a scene with Ali, with Coleman Domingo, which was really good because Ali is very religious. And it's a very funny but very authentic scene about someone wanting religion, someone who has religion, the flaws of that. Lexi sees religion sometimes as a cult. Rue sees all religious people, Ali sees all religious people being happy. They give all perspectives. Everyone tries to act like Euphoria picks one side in things. They do show all sides of every situation, which I always find very enjoyable. But she meets Alamo, she wants the job, and it all comes down to, she's dancing with all the girls, and he's like not happy about it. And he puts the apple on her head, shoots off the apple, and it looks like he will be hiring Rue. So I don't know how Rue is going to get out of the situation with Laurie, and how if Alamo will protect her in that. It's going to be a fascinating thing. We did not see Jules in this episode. We know Kat will not be involved in the season. But I love these characters. I think the performances continue to be just excellent, especially with Zendaya, Jacob Elordi, and Sydney Sweeney. Maddie's always been my favorite character. She didn't really get a lot to do in this episode, other than we just know what she's been up to. Jules was not in this episode at all. We just learned from Lexi what she's been up to. So again, I have a lot of nervousness. I definitely thought the show looked beautiful. The performances were great. I'm still intrigued by the show, but I'm definitely nervous about the future of the season, where we're going, if it will get to the heights that was seasons 1 and 2. But I'm very excited to be back, to be covering this show over the next 2 months. So what are your guys' thoughts on season 3 of Euphoria? Did you like this premiere episode? Are you nervous? Did you just hate it? Let me know down in the comments. Like this video, subscribe to my YouTube channel, and I'll see you guys in another video very soon.